The fact that we've made it 100 years is a testament to the people that have worked at, volunteered with, and managed the agency.
To have it consistently there for the community.
Despite many, many challenges, not only survived, but has thrived.
This is the Diocese of Buffalo.
During this 100-year period, that's what we're doing. We're celebrating and thinking, wow, look what we've inherited and what we need to carry it forward.
This is the area in the kingdom of God which the Catholic Charities Appeal has served and strengthened for many years.
There's always going to be need of care of our people, and there's always going to be need for Catholic Charities.
It's significant to tell our community that last year we served 150,000 people. That's great. It was also important to say, and this is the impact.
Anyone can come to Catholic Charities and can walk away knowing that they're respected, that they're cared for, and that there's a better way to live.
There really is no other organization that reaches out through the 8 counties.
It's inspiring to me to know that that work, that's the part that hasn't changed and will never change.
The story you were about to see is not just the story of a fundraising venture, but rather this is the story of what God's blessing and a people's faith has done.
There isn't a strong appreciation for everything Catholic Charities does.
I want people to know of Catholic Charity, what a great service that give to family.
It's no matter who you are, no matter your faith tradition, no matter what you do, Catholic, non-Catholic.
It's there for everyone.
There's hope for you all seasons of your life. I knew that they were the program that could ultimately help me.
Absent Catholic Charities being there, well, then there would have been nothing.
Because we understand that this is not only a ministry of our church, but it's very important work that the community needs.
We provide services for basic needs.
Over 57 programs in over 80 locations.
1 in every 10 people of Western New York assisted by Catholic Charities every year.
Offered the opportunities to improve their lives.
We're there for everybody.
Impact people's lives in a transformational manner.
This is a human service organization, but more than that, it's a real presence of God's love for them.
They have made this operation successful since 1923.
Whatever the need is, Catholic Charities is there to find a way to meet it.
Because it's a people-to-people operation, inspired by the love of Christ. And we have that in our heart. Who's going to stop us?
About 115 years ago, there was a national effort to bring together the heads of the larger charitable organizations with an idea to make them really strong professional organizations.
Catholic Charities was really the brainchild of Bishop William Turner. When Bishop Turner came to Buffalo in 1919,
Bishop Turner was looking at all the charitable work that was being done because there was so much going on at the time.
there were about 16 agencies in the area, all focused on helping children, the elderly,
Unwed mothers and orphans and widows.
But all these agencies were running independent from one another.
And there was all these charitable, but nothing was really organized.
None from this organization and one from this organization, a Christian brother from this organization.
And they were struggling financially.
Always coming and saying, well, can we get some help from you?
The idea was to try to bring those together and professionalize them so that Catholics could support them as a group.
The bishop at the time had said, well, let's do this as a one time a year instead of knocking on every door every other week.
So he decided the best way to fund all these programs would be to bring them together under one roof. And that's how Catholic Charities was born.
A 100 years ago, came together and said, let's pull all these charities together.
We'll form this new grouping called Catholic Charities.
That will be for all of Western New York.
That beacon of hope, when times are tough or when times are good.
We're here to help all of these people in this one basket.
Provide the very, very best quality of services.
And it's not an easy task. It's one that demands a lot of your time and your talent.
And so it was Bishop Turner who kind of said, let's put some organization, and who did he rely on to help him do that but Father Baker?
We all know the great work of Father Nelson Baker.
I start my day every day kneeling before his tomb in the morning, just praying. And every day I'm inspired by him.
You know, he was part of helping to establish not only all of the good works there at Our Lady of Victory, but also Catholic Charities.
Bishop Turner really relied on him, and he saw in him a very pastoral, intelligent, businesslike, but very, very faith-filled man.
It was in his DNA.
That when you think about one man's faith, he was about 5 foot tall. It was his DNA. You know, he just did it. Feeding, clothing, living the gospel mandate. That's all the embodiment of Catholic Charities, and that's where you just put Father Baker and Catholic Charities together. He began the Basilica actually in 1921, and the first Mass was in 1925. But in 1904, in the midst of all of his responsibilities,
Was also the Vicar General of the diocese. That means he was the number 2 person in the diocese.
so when they finally, in 1923, put together the Charter for Catholic Charities, it was Bishop Turner as the chair and Father Baker as the vice chair.
So one time when he was acting as Vicar General, he was over at the cathedral. Some of the sisters were out begging food for the 2 orphanages. And the person behind the counter kind of shoved these rotten tomatoes at her, and they were all down the front of her.
The new leaders of Catholic Charities decided they needed to raise money to fund all these institutions.
And when he saw that, he said, the Catholics of Western New York would never want their sisters to be treated like this. We're going to start to have an annual appeal.
It just made sense that Bishop Turner would realize that here's someone who knows the need,
They started out the very next year with an appeal.
but also is someone who can get it done.
This was something that hadn't been done before in any diocese in the country.
That first appeal back in 1924 raised over $300,000.
We were the 2nd largest Catholic Charities appeal in the country.
$318,000.
And we are nowhere near the 2nd largest diocese.
Father Baker knew how to reach out to people and ask for those small donations that would grow.
He saw that as that resource and that arm to do what the church should be doing.
So Father Baker's the one that really began what we have inherited today.
Bringing hope to people, those particularly in need and depend on us.
Whatever the need was, he would always find a way to meet it. And he did it till the day he died.
When the Depression hit, it really hit Buffalo hard. At Bethlehem Steel alone, 80% of the workers were laid off.
During the Depression, Catholic Charities was there to be able to assist them.
And did exactly what Catholic Charities would do today, is make sure that nobody was left out, and continued to reach out to the poor and the needy.
They came in droves to get assistance. Maybe it was just some food some coal for their furnace.
Catholic Charities was that vehicle that helped people, no matter their religion, no matter what, they were there to help people.
Social workers were really on the line to get out there and help these people. And the message got out to the populace in the parishes.
Catholic Charities was named as one of 10 organizations in both the city and the county to help with the social and economic problems occurring as a result of the Depression.
The appeal that never failed took on a new light because it couldn't fail, because he had all these people saying, I gotta help, we gotta help.
That mission, to help our community during that incredibly dark time, was what cemented our reputation as a beacon of hope for the next 94 years. Slowly but surely, Buffalo regained its footing in the world. Manufacturing jobs returned to the area, and at the start of World War II, Bethlehem Steel announced a $5 million expansion. But once again, we were faced with uncertainty.
You can just imagine that every household was touched by the war, no matter who was serving, how old they were, or what was going on.
At that time, our focus remained on helping our neighbors in need, especially the women who were left behind as their husbands were sent overseas.
Father might be off to war. Mom might be helping with the war situation, and she'd have a job outside the home, which leaves the little people at home. During the early 40s, Catholic Charities came through with the idea on setting up child care centers.
And the ones taking the lead in that area were the Ladies of Charity.
The wonderful ladies, the wonderful Ladies of Charities.
The Ladies of Charity are probably the biggest organization that helps the mission of Catholic Charities.
Because we've been connected as an entity of the Catholic Charities.
The Ladies of Charity, though, really are just wonderful extension of that service.
They were always there.
In the early 40s, with the war going on, they had a lot of ladies to help them, and you can imagine 100,000 hours of volunteer service through all kinds of motor pool, sewing, Red Cross, USO.
So when they learn about something where they can volunteer their time that truly is going to help someone else, they're ready and willing.
That's been ingrained from the day we were enrolled. The ladies outdid themselves because they had about 4,000 pints of blood collected, helping out the Red Cross, and phenomenal numbers, selling the war bonds in particular. And knowing that what we were working on was going all over the world, wherever the medical facilities needed them.
To sort of help be ambassadors for Catholic Charities.
Word of mouth was go to them and see what you can do and see what they can do.
There was an awful lot of activity going on.
Remarkable group of women that thankfully are still around.
Our motto is a real simple one, to serve rather than be served.
They had a need in that area. Ladies of Charity was there.
The decades following World War II saw a lot of growth. It was during this time that some of our most enduring programs were started. For example, our behavioral health clinics were started in 1957, and we named them after Monsignor Carr, our first director.
What has stood out for me in terms of Catholic Charities really is how expansive it is.
I think a lot of times what people think about Catholic Charities is that we're just an organization that have the food pantries, or we have our Monsignor Carr program.
Back then, Catholic Charities was one of the main providers of a wide range: financial assistance, housing, food.
Monsignor Kniff would say, we are much more of a can-do organization, and we don't say we don't do that.
Monsignor John Kniff was named diocesan director in 1965.
Well, he's just a kind-hearted fellow, one that you wanted to be around.
He was so devoted to the city and to the care of the poor, and that became the focus of really Catholic Charities.
He was diocesan director of Catholic Charities from 1965 through 1995 and grew the organization greatly, both professionally, in size, and in the contributions of the people of Western New York.
I do remember his passion and his commitment, his humble kind of demeanor, but a real presence. And I just had great respect and love for him.
Well, let's see. I think he started out on the right foot by getting me to help him. So that's an accomplishment. He always said the nicest thing that Bishop McNulty ever did was to appoint the two of us to Catholic Charities. So I'll agree with that. So
He really talked about us being the hands of God and the hands of the church in the community.
As our community continues to grow and needs change, we try to stay very in tune with what are the current needs of the community.
He said, we're not a white coat organization. We're in the trenches. We're not going to be fancy or do therapy. But there was this swell of interest in family therapy.
He was open to change, that he was open to continually to look at how Catholic Charities could best serve the needs.
So he pulled together a group who were really interested in the family therapy training and wanted to know why we thought it was going to be helpful, and he would think about it.
taking the feed from the people who are working in the field to tell us, here's a need that we should be working on.
It transformed the organization. And that was really because of Monsignor Kniff.
Monsignor Henry Gugino succeeded Monsignor Kniff as the diocesan director of Catholic Charities.
Had the privilege of working with Monsignor Gugino back then. Such great memories. He was such a showman.
He had a gimmick for trying to get everybody's attention at these luncheons.
Had props to bring everyone's attention to the cause and what was going on.
I know the one was get on the train. I can still remember him putting on the hat of a conductor.
The man that hired me and gave me the opportunity was named to the position of CEO of Catholic Charities. The first time there was that position and the first time there was a layperson being in an executive role. So I'll always be grateful for that.
Monsignor Gugino was a tough leader. Like he believed so much in his mission, but passionate and very organized. He was wonderful to work with.
And it was sad when he passed away.
That was a very sad and challenging part of the history of Catholic Charities. It was very difficult for all of us, employees and board, to see him get sicker and sicker on the job. And it reached a point where there was nothing anybody could do. Even in his weakened state, he was there. And he tried to be there for employees and for the board, for the field workers, and until he died. He really worked hard to be there for all of us.
Catholic Charities has always responded when crisis has hit our community.
The biggest challenge we faced was the weather.
The ever-increasing and the ever-evolving needs of people in the Diocese of Buffalo based on the weather.
Whether it was flooding in the southern tier, a blizzard.
They were predicting something, but nobody paid any attention to it. The wind was so bad that people could barely walk across the street.
Catholic Charities always boots on the ground, what I would consider first responders to
the blizzard of '77. Catholic Charities played a pivotal role during the blizzard of '77.
The role that Catholic Charities provided during the blizzard, in many cases, unfortunately, life and death.
We were sent home a little bit early that day because the wind was kicking up. Around about a week, I got a letter in the mail. We were necessary workers because there was a travel ban and we should be allowed to travel, so we could go in.
Most of the offices were able to get open, people could get there to help. I was marooned myself because I couldn't get out.
Hundreds of people were coming in looking for food, looking for food assistance.
Over a 3-day period, we distributed more than $17,000 to people who were unable to get a paycheck because of the storm.
Times are tough. These kids were tough, but they softened, you might say, to be able to get out and help people.
Someone called in crisis.
Everyone pitched in.
Because the streets weren't plowed, I had to walk there.
She was right down the front lines.
I was climbing over snow mounds.
They were closer to the people that needed it.
The sidewalk is down here, but really I'm walking however high it was.
Testament to the dedication of our employees.
Every time we had any type of disaster, we've had Catholic Charities.
That was the kind of organization we were. We were going where we needed to go.
Trying to shovel out neighbors.
Helping people who had no resources. They had run out of food.
We serve everyone.
Showing up at their door when nobody else could or would.
Got a neighbor to Columbus Hospital to help a heart attack victim.
We were there.
That's who we are and what we do.
The Hope theme, the Four Seasons theme reflects very well.
The people are Catholic Charities. It's not just some office building. It's the people.
The late 70s were really difficult for the people of Buffalo. Bethlehem Steel started layoffs in '77, and ultimately the plant closed in '83. Other large employers in manufacturing like Chevrolet and Republic Steel
and Donahoe, Coke chemical plants in Niagara Falls
closed their doors, and this really led to a major unemployment crisis in our region.
Plants closing and people being put out of work after many years.
It was difficult in the community. Put strain on marriages. People had to move. Wives had to work.
Because when one income is missing from a household, it changes the whole dynamic of the family.
I think in a way it helped the charities to direct some of its resources to help those people.
A lot of people who had been donors to support Catholic Charities began coming to us for support.
The dollars that Catholic Charities raise really does go to those in need.
Whether it be food pantries in Lackawanna and retraining with education people to other parts of the diocese.
There seem to be fewer and fewer contributors to Catholic Charities.
The dynamic of the Western New York was changing. And with that, the challenge of still reaching a goal that was higher usually than the year before, with less people, became very challenging.
It was a problem 35 years ago, and I believe it's still a problem today.
We rely on the providence and the generosity of the donors to continue the ministry.
If it weren't for the money raised through the appeal, Catholic Charities would not have been able to help during that time.
Over the last 100 years, Catholic Charities has grown up with Western New York. We are an integral part of the community.
Helping people that would fall through the cracks if Catholic Charities wasn't there.
I would hope that it highlights the great need that the community has.
We impact the lives of nearly 10% of the population of Western New York.
There's always someone in need of help and assistance.
The Diocese of Buffalo, when we talk about the city of good neighbors, it really is true.
Of the approximately 150 dioceses, Buffalo would be about mid-size, but we had the second largest appeal.
Let's make Western New York and Buffalo what it is. It's a very giving community.
The people of Western New York understand there's something about, maybe it's because we've always had to kind of struggle as a city, as a community.
The Catholic Charities appeal is, if not the biggest, a big part of the success and the reputation that we have here in Western New York.
It says a lot about the diocese, but it says a lot about the people.
This is an enormously generous community.
It's neighbors helping neighbors.
I think if you just tell people what they're doing and how much change happens because of their generosity.
And when we do that, I think we have to show the need so that we can respond to it.
And this past year, nearly 30,000 Western New Yorkers made a donation to support the appeal. We use that money to assist nearly 130,000 people.
One person at a time, one family at a time, respects them, loves them, and gives them the tools to go forward in their lives. It isn't just a handout, but it really is a hand up.
They want to be self-sufficient, to get a job, to provide everything for their family.
I got to see firsthand clients that were helped and to hear their stories. And I think that's the important thing, is to hear from the people themselves who have been affected. So when you have a woman standing there at a luncheon saying,
"They never ever gave up on me. If it weren't for my counselors at Catholic Charities, I wouldn't be sitting here today."
When I started working with Catholic Charities, I think, like most, my eyes opened. We are the most comprehensive human service agency in Western New York. We have over 50 programs serving individuals of all ages, all economic statuses, all religious backgrounds, everybody.
The mission of Catholic Charities is the mission of the church.
This is a ministry of our church.
We ultimately want to emulate the life of Jesus.
I see Catholic Charities as where the tire hits the road.
The list of everything we do goes on and on. There's no other agency that does all of this.
Serving everyone. Everyone.
More than 50% of the people who are served were not Catholic. It was what Jesus would do. Help everyone.
We have behavioral health resources for folks. We have food pantries. We assist refugees to be resettled in the country.
Catholic Charities was that vehicle that helped people.
When somebody is in need, Catholic Charities of Buffalo is the best place to go.
I was introduced to Catholic Charities, their Humboldt office in 2009. I was living at an alternative to incarceration housing because of my addiction. The most vital service that I was having as the years progressed was my interaction with my counselor. Catholic Charities stuck with me. The counselors there continually helped and encouraged me. Not once did they tell me when I had relapsed over and over again, Kedra, you can't come back here. We don't think we can help you. The door was always open. Their interest in me helped me feel important and feel better about myself. Today, I am an active member of the bar. I would not be an attorney today if it weren't for the counselors that I had at Catholic Charities.
Our mission is to support everybody.
And we are going to be responding to people when they have a need.
We need to be there, the very face of Catholic Charities for people today.
It's a beacon of hope for all seasons.
Catholic Charities is a good place for you.
And when you see the client become success, they own a home, they buy a car, the children finish high school, and then you see that the reward that they pay back to you and to Catholic Charity.
Without Catholic Charities, this community isn't what it is. This community has hundreds of thousands of individuals and families who parent better, who relate better, who communicate better, because Catholic Charities was there to help them.
And shows them how to live a more productive and good life.
They gave me hope for all seasons that I went through in my life.
There is hope, always hope.
If it wasn't here, somebody'd have to start it.
Because the need will never go away. There are always going to be people in need.
Catholic Charities has been here to pick people up.
Everybody needs to be served and cared for.
So they may come empty, but by the time we're done, they're full.
For 100 years, Catholic Charities has provided these services. They've done it without a pat on the back. They've done it without the spotlight.
Because when people come and you can see that you can make a difference in their lives.
So you're never alone. The Catholic Charities is there. It is the hope.
For all the seasons in your life, for all the seasons of the year, we want to be there for you, and we want you to be there for one another.
Looking back and saying, thank you, God, for everything. And now let's ask for that inspiration to go forward for the next 100 years.
This is the Lord's work. And so confident that this is God's project, we're on the right track, and this is going to keep going as long as the Lord wants it to.
We look to the future. We know that we will have God's blessing. This is the story of the Catholic Charities Appeal, what it has done and what it will do with your continued help. The future is in your hands.